Am I the asshole for reporting my sister's therapist? I've got a situation, Reddit, and I need some guidance. I'm the older sibling, clocking in at 25, and my sister's 20. Our family dynamic has always been, well, complicated. My parents have been together for a long time, and they always wanted a daughter, even before I was born. When I came along, they were a bit bummed but not too disappointed. They kept trying for another child and faced some conception troubles, even seeking help from a clinic. Eventually, they succeeded and were overjoyed when they found out it was a girl. They told me to be a good role model and keep her safe, which made me happy as a 5-year-old. However, things changed after my sister was born. My relationship with my parents shifted dramatically. I felt sidelined, almost like I didn't matter anymore. I didn't get birthday celebrations, gifts, or a close connection with my parents. They said they had to focus on my younger sister because she was little, and I needed to understand that. Growing up, my parents treated my sister and me totally differently. They made me get a job at 14 to help with bills and rent, while my sister didn't have to. I never got the same treatment as her. She got new stuff, and I had to work for everything with my part-time job, even though I had to give half of my earnings to my parents. My sister was the favorite, and we never got along well. When I turned 18, I worked hard and got into medical school. But my parents said they couldn't afford to help me out, which really annoyed me. I decided to go anyway and worked my butt off to pay for everything. Despite the challenges, I finished my degree and started my residency. My sister just finished high school and got into this pricey private college, living on her own with our parents' full support. I've kinda made peace with their favoritism, keeping my distance since I barely see them living in a different city and all. So, when I visited recently, my sister shocked me by suggesting we go to therapy together. I thought it might help us patch things up, but the therapist ended up blaming me for all my sister's issues, saying I needed to step back for her mental health. I got seriously pissed, confronted the therapist, and, of course, my sister and parents took her side, leaving me fuming. Since I believe what the therapist did was unethical, I filed a complaint against her, thinking it was the right thing to do. Turns out, it's not as anonymous as I thought, and now my parents are begging me to withdraw it, claiming it'll hurt the person who was apparently helping their princess. I had enough and hightailed it out of there, driving 6 hours back to my place, still seething and feeling like I could have handled the whole mess better. Now, I can't say I'm not feeling like shit. I hate this situation, and while I don't feel like all I did was undeserving, maybe I should have handled it differently. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? Note: I'm not on the US or Europe. Not the asshole. You were right to report the therapist. That was out of line, and any therapist who actually encourages unhealthy relationships shouldn't be in the field at all. Please don't withdraw it, because if they did it to you, then they probably did it to someone who won't stand up to them. Not the asshole. Reports are fulfilling on suspect of unethical actions of therapist. You should done that if you felt it's unfair for you. Also, your parents are solid asshole for treating child differently. You did nothing wrong. This seems so very odd. Can you share any specifics on why the therapist thought you were responsible for the princess's problems? This seems off. I'm a psychologist and have had to report other clinicians before. They give you the option to remain anonymous. And even if you opt to give your identity, they don't reach out and inform the therapist. Not the asshole. If you barely even see your family, you can hardly be a problem for your sister. And the therapist suggesting that is likely a result of blindly believing whatever your sister told them. Probably best to stay away from them. Am I the asshole for a misunderstanding that happened just before my partner went for surgery? For some reason I, 33F, am struggling to let go of a misunderstanding between the nurse, my partner, 36M, and me that occurred literally as he was being taken to surgery. For context, this was a planned surgery to remove some hardware from a previous injury. Obviously I wanted to be there for him, so I took the day off so I could take him to hospital. Any kind of surgery is a big deal and he has every right to be worried. As his partner and someone who loves him very much, naturally I was worried too, but I didn't talk about so as not to add to his anxiety. Anyway, we got to the hospital in plenty of time. We're waiting at the theater submission room where we were told go. The nurse comes out and says my partner's name. The next thing I know, he stood up. She said something to me about going to the end of the corridor. Just to note, I am hard of hearing and use hearing aids. I started to panic a bit because they were taking him away and I didn't understand what the nurse was saying as she had a strong accent and I could not hear her well. So I asked, where am I supposed to go? She said I can wait at that end of the corridor or go home and someone will call me when he's done. I said, but you don't have my number? At that point my partner told me off. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he thinks I was rude to the nurse. I can be blunt, but I had absolutely no intention of being rude. I have the utmost respect for anyone who works in the hospital. He said I was acting like they're idiots and they don't know what they're doing. In hindsight, of course he can give them my number. I was just panicking and the whole interaction lasted no more than a minute, and then he was gone. He gave me stern peck and walk off, clearly annoyed. He then WhatsApped me saying, "You were very rude." That's the last interaction we had until 3 hours later when they wheeled him back to the ward, at which point he shouted, "Who let you in here?" and said to the nurses I'm a tyrant, and then asked me why I came back. That bit I'm fine with because he just had anesthetic and I know it makes people weird. Am I the asshole for being upset about feeling misunderstood? I don't know why I'm struggling to let this go. My partner says I'm forgiven but insists I was out of order, and if I bring it up he gets extremely angry. Says I'm insane for wanting to go over it again, and most recently that I make him sick. I just want to feel like he gets why I was thinking that way. I think it comes down to there being many other situations where my feelings are not validated, but he's the one that's just surgery. I do feel like I must be the ear's-hole for even letting this bother me at all. And #X200B. Just to note, I did apologize to the nurse as well because he said I was rude and I have been taking great care of him. I don't feel like it's resolved, but I definitely do not want to bring it up ever again either, so just need to let it go. And #X200B. And #X200B. And #X200B. There is absolutely no reason for you to require your husband's forgiveness. He sounds like he's being overly harsh, but that may have been the stress talking? If you never have to see the nurse again, she probably won't remember you. It's just another person who had some issue with her that day. I say this from my experience in hospitality and teaching. Your husband's behavior afterwards I personally find that concerning. Questions. Do you normally hyperfixate on certain issues or interactions that you have? Has he reacted like this before to a concern you have? What do you mean he said you make him sick? Not the asshole. Your partner, though, seems like a shitty dude. Stop overthinking it, you did nothing wrong. Why were you immediately panicking? Your partner is emotionally abusive. He forgives you? Not the asshole, but your partner is an asshole for the verbal abuse. You deserve better. Would I be the asshole for telling off my friends for bringing their dogs to an outdoor party? Every so often, my 10-year-old son's friend group get together and one of the parents throws a barbecue, pool party, and all the kids, parents, siblings are invited. The last couple of times have been hosted by other families. This time I offered to host. In the past, a couple of the families have brought their dogs with them. However, previous hosts have all been dog owners, so there was going to be a dog there anyway. We don't own dogs. So last night, the kids and their families started to arrive at about 12 p.m. One of the first families to rock up arrived with their border collie in tow, and I was quite taken aback. However, they didn't even bring it up in conversation. They said hello, how are you, and all those pleasantries, and never once brought up the fact that they'd brought the dog along. I was still in shock when another family arrived, with their Labrador and Blue Heeler as well. So that totaled 3 dogs on the premises, none of which had been invited. They didn't even put them on leashes, they just let them run freely in the backyard while the kids were playing. Of course, the kids loved having the dogs there and spent heaps of time just petting the dogs and playing with them, throwing them tennis balls, etc. I was really mad but didn't have the courage to say anything. I didn't want to cause a scene while the kids were there and look like the bad person. A bunch of the kids went inside and the Labrador followed them in. I asked the mum if she could not have the dog go inside. She called out to the dog a couple times, it didn't respond, so she went in to go and get it. It came bounding out a couple seconds later and then she went back and sat down, no, sorry, or anything. It was clear she didn't see it as a big deal. Nor did she take the hint that I didn't want the dogs there. They all left at around midnight. The kids and parents all enjoyed themselves, but I was really furious at them bringing the dogs into my home completely uninvited. The backyard didn't seem damaged at all, but there were a few dog hairs near the back door, which I had to vacuum up. I'm also worried that my garden will start developing spots. I'm not sure if they would have peed while they were there. Can a dog normally hold it for 12 hours or is that too long? Also, I'm not sure if they'd have pooped while they were at the house. None of the owners left with any doggy bags, so I'm assuming either they didn't clean up the poo, or the dogs all held it in. Please let me know if dogs can hold poop for that long, as I'll probably bring it up in my message. I haven't had time to look in the backyard for poop yet. Basically, I want to send out a stern message to both parents for bringing the dog uninvited, and for potentially letting them piss and poop all over the yard. I think they deserve to know they were out of line. My husband has told me that it's not worth it, they didn't do any damage and the kids all had fun. Would I be the asshole for messaging them? You are the asshole. The precedent was set that animals are welcome to these things. You hosted at your house without telling them to leave their pets at home. That mom acted like the dog going inside wasn't a big deal. Because a dog going inside a house isn't a big deal. If it's a big deal to you, then you need to communicate that. If you don't want dogs at your home, or in your yard, then you need to communicate that to your guests when you invite them over. In the past, a couple of the families have brought their dogs with them. Right. So historically this has been a dog-friendly event and you said nothing about not wanting dogs at your house on this occasion prior to hosting? This situation could so easily have been avoided. Instead you sat there the whole day, silently fuming over the fact the kids were enjoying having the dogs around and someone's Labrador went in the house once. It was clear she didn't see it as a big deal, nor did she take the hint that I didn't want the dogs there. Next time, use your grown-up words and clearly communicate what you want instead of expecting people to read your mind. Don't send the message, YWBTA if you did. The party is over. Let it go. Next time make it clear no dogs. YYWBTA. It's over already. The dogs didn't maul a child. You knew pups had come to events prior. It was on you to advise people before the party that pets wouldn't be allowed. Truth be told, if you had told people they couldn't bring their dogs, there's a likelihood you'd not be asked in the future to host events, so that might work out best for you too. Communication is key. If you invite, say no dogs allowed. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that my son is important? Hello Reddit. Throwaway account because my husband follows my main. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, 46M, for almost 4 years now. I have 2 kids from previous relationships. I have my son, Liam, 13M, and my daughter, Reagan, 17F. Their father left me a long time ago, when Liam was 5, so I've been raising them alone until I met my husband, James, almost 5 years ago. My ex-husband left us because he preferred his mistress more than his own 2 kids and wife. This left my children heartbroken, and he isn't active in their lives anymore. Times were tough for me and my family back then, but James showed me love and compassion I barely felt from my own family. James has been a great dad, and has shown us that he really cares for me and my kids, until recently. Both of my kids are in extracurriculars, because I feel like it's really important for kids to have sports, because it helps them connect and bond with kids around their age, who also like doing the same sport. But recently, I've noticed that my husband, James, has stopped attending Liam's hockey games, but still goes to my daughter's football games. She's a cheerleader and does sideline cheer for her high school, but also does competitive cheer on the side with her friends. Every time in the past couple of weeks that I've tried to get James to come to Liam's hockey games, he'd go, "Oh, I can't today. Such and such popped up at work," or, "I'm not feeling good today. Just take Liam and I'll see if I'm up to it today." He has weekends off, and Liam's games are on Sunday, if that matters. But Liam's games are super important to him, and I can tell that he's kinda distracted when James isn't there, and when he's in the car and I hop into drive, he'll say something like, "Hey, where's James? He not coming today," and I can tell on his face that he's bummed out when he hears that James isn't gonna come. When it's time for Reagan's games, however, James is always ready, and is even early. When I get home from work, on Fridays, he'll be ready for the game, and have the car packed with snacks, bring a water bottle for Reagan, and have stadium chairs packed in the car, and blankets for the game. My state gets super cold at night. This is even evident around the house. I'll wake up some mornings, and Reagan will ask James to put on some extra bacon for her, or make an extra piece of toast for her, and he'll do it no problem. But if Liam asked him the same thing, he'd groan, or go, "Can't you just do it yourself?" If Reagan asked James to drive her somewhere, he'll be fine with it, but when Liam asks him, he goes, "All right. But remember, I'm not an Uber." I talked to my sister about my husband not being at Liam's games and she told me I was being an asshole for expecting him to be everywhere my kids are, and that he's their stepdad, and can only do so much. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and I may be overthinking it. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. It's odd that he's only interested in your nearly adult daughter and not your son. This is an issue of attention, sure. But I would also be wary of his intentions when he showers extras on your daughter. Not the asshole. You need to have a conversation with James about why he's attending Reagan's events but not Liam's. Ask your daughter to make sure he isn't grooming her. Ignoring one child but doing so much for the other already sounds sketchy. But the fact that it's the daughter only getting all that attention seems very suspicious. Not the asshole. There are red flags here. You need a conversation with your husband as to why he's running around after your nearly adult daughter and leaving your son to get on without him. This is rather creepy behavior. Not the arsehole at all, but lots of red flags with James's behavior.